So I'm checking in. Now, this is really a test on who got up early. How many of you saw the rainbow? See, I know you shared that with, okay. So some of you saw that it was just an amazing experience. There was this gorgeous, very bright rainbow all the way down to the ground. And I couldn't help but imagine that every Easter bunny in the area was going over there, running through to get their eggs colored and headed out all over the place. It was just, had to be. So I invite you to put your mind back in time a little bit. 5 days after the 9/11 experience. Okay, 5 days afterwards, in Queens, New York. And there in Queens, early in the morning, about 3 a.m., there's a Egyptian coffee shop. And it's run by a man named Labib Salam. Labib Salam. And Labib and some of his friends were there, and they were playing chess at that early morning hour and smoking together and doing what all of us were doing through those days, trying to make sense of what had happened just down the road from this coffee shop. Suddenly, a group of 4 young men break into the shop, and they begin grabbing the tables and the chairs and smashing everything in sight. They go over and take the dishes and the cups and they throw them on the floor and break them. They take the things and go over and beat against the mirrored wall, breaking it completely. Now, when they came in and started with the violence right away, Labib called the police. And they arrived very, very quickly before the young man had left. And so they were able to arrest them, putting them in handcuffs, and had them there on the floor. And they came up to Labib to begin to get the information that they needed to take these young men down and charge them with this crime which they had just committed. And Labib said to them, "I don't want to press charges." And they said, but you have to. Look what they've done. And Labib said, "I don't want to press charges. I want them to go free." And the cop explained to them, "If you don't press charges, the insurance company will not cover any of this damage." He said, "No. I feel their rage too. I understand. I won't press charges." So the police took the young man outside and took the handcuffs off and released them. And then after a few minutes, the police left. Less than an hour later, the 4 young men were back in the shop again. When I think of Easter and the experience of resurrection, my mind goes back to Labib, because I'm convinced that part of what happened in what appears as this amazing miracle was in fact the result of Jesus reaching into that place of forgiveness when on the cross, when in that place of feeling and experiencing violation by others. Somehow or other that seemed to be part to me of what opened the door for this powerful demonstration of spiritual capacity, spiritual power to take place, so that we could all understand that just as he did that, so can we. We have this spiritual self. We have this amazing power. And when I think of it, it almost seems like there was a whole set of demonstrations there of the spiritual capacity that we have. This thing that our spiritual power is able to do, the spiritual self. If you remember, there was the experiences where he fed people. Okay, and then time and again where he healed them. Now his explanation is he didn't heal them, that it was their faith that healed them, but he had to be there in support of that. And then there's those experiences where he would come forth with a wisdom that brought a greater view, a greater clarity, a greater understanding of what was taking place and what life was about. But you've done all those things. You fed people. Lots of people. Can you imagine how many meals have been served by the hands in this room? Yeah, and you guys too. Can you imagine? I mean, and you have been there in support of those who were sick. Right? Again and again. Children, family, friends who've been there at the hospital and at the bedside and making a chicken noodle soup and those things that were just part of caring. And the words of wisdom. How often, when there was that confusion and difficulty, and you took and shared that which would have meaning to someone, which would bring that clarity. Now that's what he did. Now, I admit he did it a little more spectacularly, okay? And that's okay. I mean, you know, he had his purpose, and he was really, really good at that. And that's, you know, that's great. But there was a difference that he was showing us. I don't think it was the difference between he and us. I think it was the difference that can be present in that experience. You see, in the feeding of the 5,000, if you go back there and you look at the words that describe that, at the very end it says, they ate and were satisfied. Now, satisfaction doesn't have anything to do with eating. He's talking about something else there. That there was a feeding that took place that satisfied that being. There was an experience of something more. And even though I know you may have cooked or helped or prepared or bought the stuff or cashed the check or whatever it was that went into feeding people, there were probably a few times where it was just getting the stuff on the table. But there were also times when what you gave created satisfaction. And there was in that family, in that exchange, in that experience for those people, there was something that touched them more than food. Isn't that true? You know that experience. That's the love. And that's what he taught. And that's what he demonstrated. It's a universal law. Love transforms. And there were, in those times when, there were probably quite a few times when somebody was sick and we just did the things we had to do. But you know there were those other times. Right? Those times when there was that love and care that went from you that touched and surrounded and made somehow that journey into wholeness more real. That opened up that faith, if you will, that let the healing take place. You know the difference. And that difference was love. And you were there. You know that experience. And the wisdom. Now my guess was we all have talked a lot and shared a lot. And most of it was probably not what we'd call wisdom. But there were those times when you were with someone and your heart spoke. You know the difference? Your heart spoke. And understanding took place. And they were able to experience a greater possibility, a different way of looking at things. And you've done that. You spoke from your heart, that presence of love. Love transforms. Every time you love, love transforms. That's the miracle. Every time I love, love transforms. Join me. Every time I love, love transforms. Again. Every time I love, love transforms. Once again. Every time I love, love transforms. That's true. And you've done it. That's the miracle. And then we come to this resurrection thing. Now the difference is, it's an inside job. You can't do it for somebody else. And somebody else can't do it for you. And we've probably all had that point where we struggled with it because it's about that in us which is dead. That which has been hurt by the pain and the loss, where there is no hope and there is no compassion. Okay? When those 4 boys, men, young men, came back into that Egyptian coffee shop, they looked at Labib and said, "Thank you for not pressing charges." They picked up the brooms and began to sweep up the glass and help the men that were there salvage what they could and clean up the mess that they'd made. Then they got coffee. And they sat down with those men. And they talked together for 4 more hours and shared their fear, their rage, the hurt, the hope. And they walked out of there, friends. That's resurrection. Now, one of the interesting things to me is they didn't need to do that. First of all, we've all done really stupid things. Some of us more and better than others, but we've all had our turn at it, okay? And we know that when we get caught up in that, the most important thing is to blame somebody else and deny it, okay? And some of us are more effective at that than others, okay? And then the other thing is just to get out of there because of how we look at ourselves and how we feel. They didn't do that. They went through an experience of bringing alive the love in them. Now the great thing is, what that tells me about resurrection, what that tells me about what took place is there is no death. It cannot die in you. What was real for Jesus was the love and the presence of himself as a spiritual being, not the body. That's just something that you can fill with life. What happened for those young men? That place where they had been to in the hurt and the anger that said, I don't care about you. I don't care if you hurt. Maybe even feel better if you hurt. I'm not one with you. I am separate and I am all that matters. And our rages have been there, and we know that place where our compassion and understanding are dead. But something more powerful was present in them. Resurrection. And that something is always there. And you know what it does? It takes that ordinary thing, that whatever it is, that experience in our life, and it just lifts it to another level. Now, when we reach for it, it creates a different state of being. It moves us into the expression of that spiritual self. So there is a beautiful symbol, or I'm going to decide it's a symbol of that. And it's chocolate Easter egg. So would you make sure that everybody here gets some chocolate Easter egg? Okay. So now the hardest part of this morning is not eating it until it's time, okay? Because you see, there's this cocoa bean that really is quite bitter and doesn't taste good at all. But then there's something you add to it. You add sugar. Okay, and suddenly it's one of the most wonderful things in the whole world. Okay, and every time you do that, no matter what, it changes it, it uplifts it. So what I'm inviting to you, as you take one of these and hold it, okay, and I hope you get the opportunity to eat a lot more of this today. And you folks are on a diet, forget it! It's Easter! Okay, so as you take, now take care of our choir. Oh my goodness, yeah. So pass that out, yeah. Okay. Can't leave them out. My goodness. Okay, so we've got the chocolate Easter egg. Okay. Now what happens is, if you look at every one of those experiences you had, feeding, supporting somebody through illness, that experience of really sharing something from your heart, every time you do that, there is a sweetness to it, isn't it? It's there. It's that sugar's that beautiful symbol. And like all symbols, it's got its limitation. Okay? Now the problem is, when you eat the Easter egg, it's gone. When you do the love, it's not gone. So it's important, but I invite you to make a commitment. Okay? As you eat the Easter egg, as you taste the chocolate, as you taste the sweetness, make that commitment that every time you eat chocolate, you'll remember love transforms. Okay? It takes us to that next level. It's what makes it good. Love transforms. Every time I love, love transforms. Every time I love, love transforms. Every time I love, love transforms. Eat that Easter egg. Go for it. Make that commitment. Because there will be lots of chocolate in your life. And, okay, when you taste that sweetness, that love is what makes a difference. It's not bitter like the bean. It's filled with life and goodness. And every time you eat chocolate, love transforms. Okay. Okay, so what I invite you to do, whenever you're at that point where somehow or other it seems like it's impossible, it's hopeless, that part of you that knows that goodness is dead. Because that happens. It feels that way. Somebody is going to come in your life and give you a piece of chocolate. They're going to show up. It's going to be there. It's almost omnipresent in our world, okay? And when that happens, you're going to remember that every time I love, love transforms. Every time I love, love transforms. And you will be transformed. And because you do it, we are all transformed. Bless you.